The sun was shining bright on May 20th, 2024, in Long Beach, California. A crowd was gathering, buzzing with excitement. This wasn't just any restaurant opening. This was the grand opening of Marathon Burger, a business carrying the powerful legacy of the late Nipsey Hussle. People were there for the food, sure, but they were also there to celebrate a dream, to feel connected to a movement that stood for community, empowerment, and building from the ground up. The atmosphere was electric, filled with hope and the promise of a new beginning. Then, in an instant, the celebration turned to chaos. Gunshots shattered the air. The sounds of joy were replaced by screams of terror and confusion. People scattered, running for their lives. When the dust settled, the scene was grim. One person was tragically killed, and several others were wounded. What was meant to be a day of triumph had become a scene of unimaginable tragedy. The very spot intended to symbolize hope was now marked by violence, leaving a community reeling and asking the painful question, why? Within minutes, the flashing lights of police cars flooded the scene. The Long Beach Police Department arrived to a scene of pandemonium. Their first priority was to secure the area and tend to the victims. Paramedics rushed in, working frantically to save lives. Detectives immediately began their work, cordoning off the area with yellow tape, marking evidence and starting the painstaking process of piecing together what happened. The initial reports were a blur of conflicting information, a common occurrence in the immediate aftermath of such a chaotic event. Eyewitnesses, still in shock, gave their accounts. Every detail, every shell casing, every piece of surveillance footage would be crucial. As the investigation unfolded, a clearer picture began to emerge. The police quickly identified a person of interest through witness statements and security camera footage from nearby businesses. They were able to track the suspect's movements before and after the shooting. A manhunt was launched. The public was urged to come forward with any information, no matter how small. Tips began to pour in, a testament to a community desperate for justice and answers. The arrest was made swiftly, bringing a small measure of relief, but it was only the first step. The next phase was to build a case, to understand the motive behind such a senseless act of violence. Was it a targeted attack, a dispute that escalated? The city held its breath, waiting for the full story to come out. To understand the weight of this tragedy, you have to understand the man whose vision inspired Marathon Burger, Nipsey Hussle. Born Ermias Esquidum, Nipsey was more than just a rapper. He was a visionary, an entrepreneur, and a fierce advocate for his community. His philosophy, "The marathon continues," was a call to action. It was about perseverance, ownership, and investing back into the neighborhoods that raised you. He didn't just rap about it, he lived it. He bought the strip mall where he used to hustle, opening his Marathon clothing store as a beacon of Black ownership. He invested in tech, in STEM programs for kids, and in real estate. His goal was to break the cycle of poverty and violence by creating opportunities from within. Nipsey Hussle's own life was tragically cut short by gun violence in 2019, right in front of his Marathon clothing store. His death sent shockwaves around the world, but it didn't end his mission. If anything, it amplified it. The Marathon Continues became a global rallying cry. His partners, his family, and his community vowed to carry his legacy forward. Marathon Burger was a part of that promise. It was meant to be another brick in the foundation he laid, a place for employment, a gathering spot, and a symbol that his dream was still very much alive. That's what makes the shooting at its grand opening so deeply painful. It wasn't just an attack on a restaurant. It felt like an attack on Nipsey's legacy itself, a cruel echo of the violence that took him from the world far too soon. In the days and weeks following the Long Beach shooting, the community response was powerful. Vigils were held, not just for the victims of this specific incident, but in remembrance of Nipsey and all lives lost to senseless violence. Community leaders, artists, and residents came together, not to be defined by the tragedy, but to find strength in unity. They cleaned the streets, They offered support to the victims' families, and they talked openly and honestly about the deep-rooted issues of gun violence that continue to plague their neighborhoods. The conversations were difficult, touching on cycles of trauma, lack of resources, and the need for more than just reactive measures. The aftermath also brought a renewed focus on solutions. Local organizations that work on violence prevention and intervention saw a surge in support. There were calls for more investment in youth programs, mental health services, and job creation, the very things Nipsey Hussle championed. The tragedy at Marathon Burger served as a stark reminder that the marathon is far from over. It highlighted the urgent need for a collective effort, from the grassroots level all the way to policymakers, to address the root causes of violence. It's a long and difficult road, but the community's resilience showed that they are determined to keep running, to keep building, and to ensure that hope, not tragedy, has the final word. The legal process for the suspect is now underway. It will be a long journey through the justice system, with preliminary hearings, evidence discovery, and eventually, a trial. For the families of the victims, this process is an agonizing wait for accountability. For the community, it's a test of faith in the system. But beyond the courtroom, the story of Marathon Burger has become a focal point for a much larger conversation. How do we protect these spaces of hope? How do we honor a legacy of peace in the face of violence? And most importantly, how do we stop these tragedies from happening again and again? This incident is a complex story with no easy answers. It's about the celebration of a legacy, the shock of a violent act, and the unwavering strength of a community that refuses to give up. The doors of Marathon Burger may have been temporarily closed, but the spirit behind it remains. The marathon truly does continue, fueled now by an even greater resolve to see Nipsey Hussle's dream of a safer, more prosperous community become a reality. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the fight for a better future must go on. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like and subscribe for more in-depth documentaries.